Dirty side supercomputer initializing, Victoria Online, analyzing Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, analysis complete, supercomputer 6-word synopsis. Farewell, Seb, we will miss you. I'm not crying, you're crying, give me a minute. Oh, just load the bozos.
Hey now, welcome to the Dirty Side of the Track, America's leading Formula One podcast. I'm Rob, that's my boy Brian. Why don't you tell him what's going on this week, Brian?
What's a podcast?
I don't know.
A podcast? It almost
I was trying to go all American, I was trying to copy you, but yeah, I think I nailed it. No one's even going to notice that was me.
No, not at all. That was awesome. So it's our 50th episode 50. Wow, this is amazing. And so we decided to switch it up a little bit. Rob brought us in. We're going to do a lot of, what you'd expect the dirty side to do, which is talk about the race, talk about what's going on in the world, news and social. We're going to have a pit lane Paul update, a fantasy update after that, and then tell you a little bit what to expect in the off season. I don't know if I did a good job recapping what's to come, but it was definitely better than Rob's intro, right?
My intro is amazing. I think I may have just auditioned to do it full time from this point forward.
You should.
You should. Yeah. It felt a little wrong, if I'm honest.
Well, we should get you your own catchphrase to start with.
Well, I was getting pressure from my family to try and do some kind of Welsh intro, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. So
wait, your family listens to the podcast?
No, they just knew I was doing this intro, so they were just busting my chops about how I was going to introduce it. So I was like, I'm going to go 100% Brian. I got to get the cadence down. I've got to get the words sorted. I've got to go. That's my boy, Brian. It was.
Nice.
They were all the elements were in there.
I love it. My family doesn't even know I do a podcast. They just they think I'm in here, talking to the microphone for no reason. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about this week, the week that was leading up to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and this first story is really hard for Rob. So I'm going to let you kind of lead it in because this is your boy, and I know how much you like Mick. So tell us a little bit about what happened.
Haas are idiots. What do you think, Brian?
I 100% agree. I couldn't agree with you more. I don't understand. I do understand, but I don't like it, is what I should say.
So for anybody who's just picked up the dirty side and has no idea what's going on, Haas has gone down in my estimation. So two things happened. One, earlier on in the week, Haas announced that they were not going to renew Mick Schumacher for next year, and they're going to bring in young sensation, Nico Hülkenberg. Oh, no, sorry, elder statesman.
I think they're bringing him back just because they heard about he's going to have a burger at the Petrolhead Cafe.
I think we may have. I'm sorry, Mick, but we may have sealed your fate because of the Hulkenberger.
Dirty Cider Garth pointed out it needs to be on a Bavarian pretzel roll. So thanks, Garth, for pointing that out. In addition, I don't understand this. I understand it and I don't. Here's my point. And we were kind of debating this on our Discord server. And if you're not on the Discord server, why not? I recognize not everyone's on Discord already. Well, join. Check it out. It's amazing. We always have the link at the bottom of every podcast that we put out. So here's the thing. Mick has cost the team money in two ways. And I don't agree with this. I keep Mick. I actually think it's a wildly unimaginative idea to put Hülkenberg in. I don't know what... You just get stability. But Mick cost the team money with the crashes. Money that could have been used.
Two
were
crashes.
Monsters.
So what?
Hold on, I'm not.
No one else crashed this year, right?
No, but it was. They don't even go to the cost cap. We were talking about this. They need a cost floor for Haas. That's money that doesn't get used for development, and he wasn't regularly in the points. I'm sorry, he just wasn't. And Nico Hülkenberg, they believe, I don't. But they believe will put them in the points more often, which raises them in the constructor, which again is more money.
It's rubbish.
I think that's the
521 points in his career, and you divide. 521 points over 181 Grand Prix or whatever. The average is 2.8 points, and he got most of those early on in his career. The guy's a has-been. I'm sorry,
he is.
He's a has-been.
I totally agree.
I was looking at the stats. They've hired a 35-year-old to come in to be their shining new light to lead them to greater things. And if this bites me on the ass at the end of next year and has won the constructors because Hülkenberg's been a hero, I will absolutely be happy and eat humble pie. But I'm looking at the drivers' ages this year, right? Okay. Oldest on the grid, Lewis Hamilton, 37. He gets a pass because he's a 7-time world champion. He's
Who's
allowed
older
to stay.
than Fernando
Yes.
and Seb?
Yes.
Is
I'm
your
going down
research
the...
right?
Okay, all I'm looking at is ages of the 2022 Formula One drivers lineup,
All right.
okay?
Yeah.
And taking it here. Everybody who's over 30 is either retiring or has
Or a
retired,
champion.
or a champion. So you've basically got, Perez is the one little anomaly, but we'll give Perez a little bit of benefit of the doubt. You've got Hamilton in there. You've got, I did get it wrong. Alonso's 40.
Yeah, I knew that.
I was scrolling down. I saw
Yeah.
Hamilton. I didn't go low enough. Okay, so Hamilton and Alonso, they get a bye because of their legendary status, right? Then you go below that. You've got Vettel, 34. Well, okay, he's just retired and hasn't been that competitive the last couple of years, and we'll love him and we'll talk about him later, but he's needed to hang up the gloves, right? You've got, what else have we got? I saw Ricardo, 32. What's going on with him? Oh, yeah, no drive next year. What else have we got? Magnussen, 29. He's done well in the Haas, but hasn't exactly set the world alight since he's come back. So basically, not wanting to really get ageist on this, but once you get north of about 28, your best days are behind you in F1 statistically.
Well, we've talked about this. I mean, Nico.
So why are they bringing a 35-year-old in?
As I said, the only reason I can figure it out is for slightly more consistency in terms of accomplishing points and less damage to the car. I have no other logic that makes any sense. That's all I got. And I don't like it either.
You're actually better off.
I'm not betting. I'm not saying do it. I'm with you.
No, I agree. But you're actually better off because I was looking at this, right? And then I'll get off my soapbox and my Mick rant
You're
here.
way
but
up there. This is a very high
way
soapbox.
up there, right? It really is. But Mick didn't score points consistently, but when he did score points, he scored decent points. And actually, therefore, Haas have finished much further up this year than last year. So their money they got actually outweighs the money they've spent on crashes, right? They factored in each crash is about a couple of million down the Swanee for the crashes. However, they're up by God knows how many million for finishing not last from this year. So K-Mag and Mick have actually probably earned the team more in prize money than Mick has caused in crashes. So now you're going to bring in a dude that's just probably going to pootle round at the back and be next season's Latifi, maybe popping in at 10th every now and again. I bet you he finishes outside the points the vast majority of next season.
180.
I bet you. And I know you're on the same side as me at this. Right?
I even have. You know what? I have a special edition of Pissed Off Rob Sapstats. Here we go. Rob's got high blood pressure edition. All right. So Nico, as we should give him has been in 181 Grand Prix, 1 pole position, 2 fastest laps, no podiums, which he's famous for, 43 laps led in 181 races. Yeah, I don't get it either. I don't understand it. It's an uninspired selection, but it's
and do you know what
safe.
really?
It's safe, and in F1 you don't play it safe.
I don't even think it is safe because it's not safe points. I think he's safe 15th to 20th every single race. And what's the point of that? You might as well not bother putting a car in.
Well,
You've actually got more chance of costing yourself money because that car might crash than points that you will get back. But anyway, the thing that really annoyed me today and why my blood pressure is up...
The donuts?
No.
Well,
Hulkenberg's interview on the grid...
I didn't see it.
Oh, wait, no, because you fell asleep and didn't watch the race this morning. But
I watched it, just not at the same time you did.
There was an interview about all of this, and he just slipped into casual conversation that discussions with him had been going on since the summer break. So all of this whole stuff that they've been putting out at the Haas PR machine about, oh yeah, Mick can still prove himself and blah, 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 blah. I think the knives have been out for him since the summer, which just
well,
is
didn't
just
they also
not
block
right.
his ability to talk to Williams at one point by like re-engaging the contract talks? I don't like the way any of it went down. The thing for me, I don't know if you saw this at the end of the race. Mick went and did some donuts up by himself in a corner, and the engineers got on like, "Please stop that right now, and he pulls away and says, "I love you too." I
thought, fair play. Stick the middle finger up at the Mick.
Oh, I'm surprised. If I were him, I would have just put it right into a wall sideways, and popped out, and said, "Enjoy it." But he obviously he wants to drive. So wait, hold on. So let's talk. Last thing about next year, though. I count 4 teams because we're talking about Haas. I count 4 teams that have some challenges in the relationships of the drivers. So obviously we're talking about Haas, and we're talking about Nico Hulkenberg and Kevin Magnussen. This from them a few years ago.
Once again, most unsportive driver of the grid. Yeah.
And they say that's water under the bridge and they're fine. That is a load of BS. When you're that angry at somebody else, the water never actually goes under the bridge. I'm sorry. That will forever be in their minds. They're now teammates. We already know Pierre and Esteban ain't BFFs. They're not sending postcards to each other at Christmas. And so the all-French Alpine team, I think, needs a little time to work some stuff out. Max and Checo, that is not done. I know we hit it a lot last week. We don't have to go through it again. And thankfully, those 2 points that Checo would have had if they'd swapped positions did not matter in the drivers' championship for Checo. But when Max's mom comes out on Instagram and talks about the rumors of Checo's infidelity, that will never be forgotten either. And the point I'd also make, Fernando and Lance came together famously in the USGP when Lance was pulling a Stevie Wonder and went across the track sideways, and Fernando went airborne. Well, you know what? They're teammates now, and Fernando didn't get along with Esteban. How do you think he's going to get along with the owner's son, especially when he just launched him? So I got 40% of the teams on the grid with some inter-team animosity. So I'm sure somewhere the Netflix Drive to Survive producer is just rubbing his hands together with a big smile, like, this is going to be great.
And the other reason he's going to be rubbing his hands together, and now to segue out of my frustration into optimism for the new season, is that Logan Sargent secured the points he needed to get his super license, so he will be joining up with Williams next year. So we're going to have De Vries, Piastri, and Sargent as kind of three new kids on the block. On one hand, we've got waving goodbye to Danny, Mick, and the great Seb, and also Latifi.
Go Tifi.
Go Tifi. And we got those three guys coming in, which I think is really going to, just add some extra spice in there. So I'm really kind of looking forward to that. You just mentioned the Red Bull and the Checo incident. The statement they put out this week
was weird.
Was weird for anybody that saw it. It was basically split into two segments. And segment number 2, I think everybody on the planet, well, hopefully most of the people on the planet agree with, which was a big, long piece about kind of the toxicity and the just nasty comments that were being, death threats that were being sent, and all that kind of crap.
Horrible stuff.
They kind of deplored all of that. And I think everybody is going to agree with that piece,
We
right?
all agree, yeah. Can we be more civil, but agreed, yeah.
Yes. The piece they led in with was about how there'd been a miscommunication and that Max was only given the instruction to let Checo past on the last corner, and therefore there wasn't enough time to execute the team orders. Seemingly oblivious to the fact that anybody with access to the internet or had recorded the race could go and fact check it in about, 2.3 seconds, about the same time as a pit stop.
Saunders, friend of the pod, Nate Saunders, had a great tweet of the big nose, the Pinocchio nose growing, and I'm like, that was my favorite tweet of the week. Nate Saunders, you win that. But why would they say that? Do they assume we're stupid?
And do you know what? They actually did get me like doubting myself for a second, and I was thinking, I'm sure I remember that playing out for way more than the last corner. That was like laps to go, where they basically said, if you can't get Alonso, you've got to give it back to Checo. That was laps and laps, not like the final corner.
GP told him, you could actually hear it in his voice when they did get to the final corner, how frustrated he was having to tell Max this for like the 9th time. So yeah, agreed. Anyway, moving on to some good stuff. A little confusing, but good stuff. So F1 announced the F1 Academy. It's a new all-female driver category aimed to develop and prepare young female drivers for racing. It's going to launch next year. 15 drivers, 5 teams, 7 events. The driver budget's capped at 150,000 euros. It's going to provide all-around preparation for the aspiring female driver. I love this idea. So much. They're going to have slightly different car. It'll be a turbocharged 4-cylinder, 165 horse, and it'll be a sort of standard chassis. So again, similar to what you'd expect. And then they went on and said it'll be also a feeder series for things like the W Series, which already exists, Formula 3, Formula 2, and Formula 1. And so I love this idea. Here's my problem. The only problem I have, the W Series exists already. And so the F1 Academy seems like, and I'm not an expert on this. I'm happy for us to do a deep dive on this in the off season because I would love to learn more about the opportunity for women in racing. But I'm a little leery about what they're going to do with the W Series because the W Series is not FIA. I don't think. I think that's separate. So this is like their W Series that they're investing in.
I don't think it is. I think the way I read this was that. So I don't think there is a good way for women into Formula 3 or Formula 2 at the moment, although they named it in their kind of little...
That's what the W Series is for.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, that's the W Series is the top level women championship at the moment, right?
Yes.
And therefore it has no feeder series. So I've read this to be that the F1 Academy is going to be the feeder series for the W Series, so that you've got more young women coming through to drive that can then get a higher level of quality in the W Series. Because now I'm going to be embarrassed. I can't remember the name of the woman that won it. She won by
Jamie
miles. She won it by miles, and the competitive level across the grid isn't very good. So I see this as a feeder series, isn't it?
I think we're over our skis. This would be like if they came out with a new Formula E category. I wouldn't know what to say about that either.
True.
But I love the idea. That's my point. I really like this. I just don't know how it fits in with the W Series.
No,
and I think they're unrelated to some extent, which makes me nervous.
But the F1, the official F1, they name check the W Series as a part of the category that it was going to be all related to. So
correct. However, it wasn't in the diagram. It was in the text. So it made me a little nervous. Again, we'll do more on this.
They need some money in the W Series as well, so they can actually finish their championships. Because that's why it's not.
Awful, I don't think it's FIA. Anyway, more to come on this, but it is an exciting opportunity, and I love the fact that they're investing in it, and I just can't wait to see it on the grid. Max was named GQ Athlete of the Year. Fantastic. Congratulations to Max. And moving on. A stat that came across the desk that I thought was pretty cool. And Lee, thank you for sending this in. Actually, I'd seen it a little bit earlier. It's the first time in 16 years this year, neither Seb nor Lewis have finished in the top 2 of the World Championship. 16 years without one of those guys in the top 2. And Lewis, by the way, this was his worst. We'll get into the stat at the end. This was his worst ever finish in the championship, 6th in his entire career. So, rough year. But anyway, a couple of videos that we want to hit. I know we're going a little long here. Apologies. But you put the first one up, Rob, so I appreciate you diving in here. Why don't you tell us about your favorite person?
It's just, there's no point, is there? I should just have a little kind of soundbite that you can play that Rob picked Lollipop Man again. I mean, it's just a genius channel. The Brazil review was amazing. I loved it. And I don't actually almost feel like I give too much away of the punchlines. So I'm just going to leave it as that. Brazil review, Lollipop Man, awesome. Link will be in the show notes, as will all the other videos. So go watch it, because it just never fails to hit the mark.
We had Lewis Hamilton with Supercar Blondie. I don't know if anyone else follows Supercar Blondie. I do. She's great. Has amazing cars. It was about 8 minutes of an interview in a G-Wagon as they drove around in Abu Dhabi. It felt as though Supercar Blondie did as much for herself as to find out about Lewis. It was not the greatest interview I've ever seen, but it was fun to watch. I think it was sponsored by IWC watches. There was a real strong watch theme through the videos this week. I don't understand, again, how this happens, but the Williams warm-up, episode 24. Thank you, Nikki, on the Williams channel. It was very long. I watched about 5 minutes and bailed out, but I love the fact they did it. It was kind of a behind-the-scenes thing, so it just meandered. But if you're going to miss Go Tifi, go check that out. We'll have the link for you. Haas, I have a couple here. They did a national anthem challenge. Mick and Kevin were trying to guess the anthems as they'd play. They kept guessing their own anthems incorrectly. Like an anthem would play, and Mick would say, Germany. And they'd be like, nope. And then the next one would play, he'd be like, Germany. And they're like, no.
Surely.
At some point, you need to know your own anthem, and these aren't them. But anyway, it was funny. You should go check that one out. It was worth a watch. Speaking of watches, the last video was Cirrus. It was on the Haas channel, but it was brought to us by Cirrus watches. I'm not familiar with their watches, and it was with Mick. And this was a good one. If you haven't seen it, Rob, you got to go check it out. It's sad to realize we're going to lose him from the grid. It was basically an interview with Mick for 5 minutes as he answered questions. I really enjoyed it. But to close this out, one last video that I did not mention, and if you have not seen, you need to watch, that Rob created, is amazing. It is a farewell to Seb, and it is on our YouTube. The link will be in the notes. It is an amazing video. Great job, man. Really, you did a great job.
I had a tear in my eye. I was pulling all those pictures together. It was just, you don't realize how long he's been driving. So, yeah, great guy.
A great video. Like, I watched it and I was really impressed. But at the same time, a few Dirty Siders also need a couple shout-outs before we get to the race. One, JP, the art that you created, the spa track, if you haven't seen on our Twitter, I put it out there. It is epic, my man. Just fantastic. You can see his Twitter handle for himself and his art studio. Check that out. Amazing. Lee is the best. He's the reason we have the Discord server. He went to the Haynes Motor Museum. I don't know where that is or what that is, but the cars were epic, and he posted a bunch of pictures, and I was excited looking at the pictures of the car. I can't imagine how cool it was to be there. So Lee, thanks for doing that. Rob Reed is the man. We put a couple pictures of him out with Paul and other people, but he was wearing his Dirty Side shirt all over Abu Dhabi at the track. How cool was that, Rob? Wasn't that neat?
That was amazing. It was like, I got excited, like, just when he was doing his selfies, kind of, here I am outside the Alpha garage in my Dirty Side t-shirt. I was like, and apparently, the second one that we sent him with, he managed to give to Jost at Williams. So
team principal.
Yeah, exactly. So
look at us moving up in the world.
Keep an eye out for that one to see if we see that turning up on eBay somewhere, or like put in his bottom drawer. But, who knows? Maybe he'll wear it one day.
You never know. And then you wrote a banger of a blog about team orders, so shout out again to you. And my friend Paul got me a gift last night of the 2023 calendar on a large board that I'm going to post in my media room. I'm just honored to be a member of the Dirty Siders with all you guys. With Thanksgiving in the States coming up soon, it was a chance for me to say thanks to everybody there.
Yep, and then we hit race week. That's the end of news and social. We moved into race week. We got ready for Abu Dhabi. It was kind of like, how many times are they going to mention last year? It wasn't a drinking game you wanted to partake in. If you were going to like neck a short or swig a beer every time someone mentioned what happened last year, I think you wouldn't have made it through the race. It was early, though, for us over here. I didn't really catch much of a lot of practice because especially for FP2, I was not getting up at whatever it was, 4 a.m. But
nope, skipped it.
Basically, so nutshell for me, practice. Yeah, not a lot other than Ferrari seemed off the pace. That was about pretty much all the news that I took away from it, which then kind of almost came back to kick us in the nuts on quali, because they seemed to pull out unfound pace that they hadn't shown through any of the practice sessions. But the thing I love most about Q1, and going back to my high blood pressure, my rant at the beginning, is I took an obscene amount of pleasure at Mick moving through and K-Mag not moving through, which... I like K-Mag, right? Yeah, but the fact that Mick out-qualified K-Mag in his last race, it was just kind of like, I hope he was flipping the bird inside that cockpit as he drove across the checker flag.
I hope he was too. Crofty was so excited about Seb and his last qualifying. He literally said, as he's driving around in Q1, and he's just passed Michael Schumacher in the first sector's time. I'm like, no, that's Mick Schumacher's time in the first sector, because that's
good old
not
Crofty.
Michael's time. But yeah, we lost both Williams drivers. Valtteri, surprisingly, Pierre, and as you said, K-Mag. So Latifi ended his last qualifying in Q1. We then, in Q2, again, I thought it was relatively uneventful. We lost Joe, Stroll, Mick, Yuki, and Fernando. So now Mick's last qualifying comes to a close, or at least as of for now, in Q2. But Danny Rick and Seb battle on into Q3. How cool was that? Danny Rick got no love. It was all about Seb. They kept showing onboards of Seb. We had crowd shots of Seb. We had a drone over Seb. And Danny Rick's out there tootling along and made it into Q3. No one would have known unless you were doing the math at home.
Poor old Danny Rick.
I love the guy. So Carlos puts it on to provisional pole, and then Max came right behind him, put it on to provisional pole. I was sitting there watching the last corner, and it seemed to me like everybody was having track limits problem there. Like they're all going wide. And I'm literally doing the, Leo DiCaprio pointing at the TV every couple of seconds, like, that's too wide. That's too wide.
I think they gave up. I think they decided to just if rather than start punishing people, let's just say everyone's doing it. I mean, why bother? We'll delete everyone's track time.
It was crazy. But anyway, we had Max and Checo, Charles and Carlos, George, Lewis and George. So 3 teams, 3 rows, each one locked out, if you will. And then Lando, Esteban, Seb, and Danny Rick rounded out the top. And so what was interesting, Mercedes looked low on pace. So like you said, Ferrari in practice didn't look great, and then Mercedes in quali didn't look great. But, I
mean, Toto had been on about that wall of doom that they have, where they kind of apparently have got a list of all the tracks where they don't think will play in to the strengths of the car this year. And Abu Dhabi is right up at the top of the the doom board, because it's got high-speed corners, which brings the good old porpoising back. and then therefore they have to hire the ride height a little bit and lose out on performance. But just one thing you mentioned about, because you mentioned Danny Rick and he didn't get the love, and we didn't mention it in News and Social, was good old Helmut decided to announce that Danny Rick was a Red Bull driver before anybody else had even mentioned it. And I thought it was actually... Christian Horner is very guarded and very good and very politically correct when he comes to giving out all of his answers to the journalists. But when they put that question to him, so is Danny Rick joining Red Bull next year? And he just had a kind of a wry smile on his face where he went, well, Helmut's kind of announced it to everybody, so I guess you know now. So yes, unless he doesn't sign the contract. And I thought, fair play, Christian. You could have actually tried to do some PR BS that none of us would believed in, but you just thought, Helmut's leaving me nowhere to go here, so I'm
might as well just
hit.
tell the truth.
So I don't know if Danny Rick really is... I don't think he stands a chance of being in a race next year. The way I've read it is that he's really more the PR guy, that if you need a Red Bull driven down the Las Vegas Strip in a PR video, then Danny Rick will drive it and stand next to it and smile. But I don't think he'll be anywhere near the grid next year because... what's his face? Who's the youngster that's really the reserve driver at...
Lawson?
Yes, Lawson. So I think if there's someone's ill or someone has to sit out, I don't think Danny Rick's first in line for a shot. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, maybe when they have to do more ridiculous tire tests every FP2, maybe they'll bring him out for one of those. He obviously has other things to do, simulator work and a few other things, but yeah.
No, he just needs to stand next to a car and smile. They've hired him for his smile, which is a genius stroke because he's got the best smile in Formula One. So you just have a guy stood next to a Red Bull, crash helmet under his arm, big smile. Danny Rick. There you go.
So
anyway,
let's talk about the race. I don't have a lot here. Yeah, you liked it a lot less than I did. I thought it was okay. But so lap 1, we had Carlos push Lewis off. And Lewis hit the curb just right, caught some air, complained about his car for about 20 laps, and then stopped complaining when he got new tires on it, and it was fine. Apparently the car healed itself.
Until it wasn't. Yeah, and then until it didn't.
Right, exactly, until it didn't. The only mechanical failure for Mercedes, I know we're not there yet, but for the whole year, the only Mercedes that had to retire because of mechanicals. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm just... Right, so before we get into this race, okay, had a little bit of a debate with JP on the Discord server, which is that this is so underwhelming as a race and so underwhelming as a track and almost unforgivable given this was a blank canvas in the middle of nowhere that they had $1 million gazillion to spend on and come up with the ultimate thing, and they seem to spend it more on the glamour and glitz and making the buildings look pretty than actually worrying about the layout of the track. And when you compare that with someone like Kota or Sepang that were also custom built, where the racing over there is amazing, how did they mess this up so badly?
I don't know. And so then you go to the designer Tilke, who does all these tracks, all the modern tracks, and there are a few Tilke tracks that are kind of bummers. I don't know. I don't like this track, and it usually doesn't give us good racing. I don't think we got great racing here. We had battles. It was better than I was expecting.
We had moments just sprinkled across the entire race. I mean, Lewis got launched, came back down to earth.
Go on. This is the exact thing that happened a couple races ago. I think it was Pierre, and they gave him a 5-second penalty. And we had this argument here, and Andy from the Fantasy League got in on it with us on Twitter. And I'd said the race control should make you give the place back. And the argument is, well, why would you do that? The 5-second penalty. If it makes it to race control and the team hasn't done it already, it's a 5-second penalty. What happened today? Why did they make him give the place back?
I don't think they did. I actually don't think they did. Do you know what I actually think happened today?
He gave it back.
No. Wait. So the rule is that race control won't make them give the thing. The teams have to work it out, right? I think the engineer didn't want to go on the radio and tell Lewis to give the place back. He bottled it and said, we've been told we had to. I reckon that was complete fiction. No one told Mercedes they had to give that place back. But I think someone in Mercedes has come on and gone, you've got to hand it back now, because if you don't hand it back now, there's going to be a 5-second penalty coming from race control. So someone's gone on the radio and gone, yeah, Lewis, we've been told we have to hand it back. No one's told you. The FIA haven't told you. Race control haven't told you.
So maybe not, but it was investigated at the top of the screen.
It's investigated. Yeah, it'll always be investigated. But that's for the 5-second penalty, not for the handing back. That's what the rule is.
Your creativity. I don't.
No. The rule is the reason it gets investigated is to see if the 5 seconds is going to get invoked.
Right.
that's it. They're not going to come on and tell you have to hand it back. So I think Lewis was never going to hand that back. He must have known he cut that corner and got the advantage. I mean, it was clear with anybody with eyes that he took signs by cutting the corner, right? So, but it was bizarre to me that it took Mercedes so long to tell him to
like
ease off. And I think I don't know that they've given a complete threshold as to when the teams have to sort it versus when race control will get involved. That one, to me, someone can tell us if there is a rule, but it feels a little bit loosey-goosey that it's kind of like race control will let it pan out for a bit, and then when they get bored with it, they'll go, right, screw you, you've got a penalty.
Oh, so I read it as that race control said give the spot back, and that's why they did it. And I said it was Austin, I think, with Pierre. And I'm like, that's the exact opposite of what happened there. And my argument was for this to happen. So anyway, yeah, that was all the excitement I had in the first 8 laps.
Yeah, I mean, that was it. I mean, really, not a lot happened. There was, we got to lap 13, George came in, there was a long stop, and then they released him, and you could just see it from the TV angle. You're like, you can't blame George, because like Paul told us, once that green light goes on and once the pit guy has released it, the driver just has to floor it and get out of there. He's not going to look in his mirrors and do kind of like a stop sign and check to see that it's okay to go. But you could see it the moment they moved the lollipop, the moment all the mechanics moved out the way, you're like, but he's going to hit whoever it was that was coming down the pit lane. It's like, and you knew that was a penalty. That was a penalty all day long. That was
100%. I mean, you knew it as soon as you're like, oh crap. Yeah, then we had a little defending after that where, Checo and Seb were kind of going at it, and they messed up some braking. Checo went long, and then Seb held off Carlos for a little while. It was fun to watch the guys who had just pitted kind of come out behind Sebastian. Sebastian, by the way, on a 1 pit stop strategy, which did not work for the Aston Martin, unfortunately. Fernando then came out, passes Yuki and Valtteri, but Yuki fights back and gets back around. I mean, the most exciting thing, this is going to be terrible for me, in the first 30 laps, not accounting Fernando's retirement, was when AWS came on and had a stat 6 laps for Charles to catch Checo. I'm like, oh, that's what I have to look forward to? The little BS made-up stat that they put at the bottom, which I usually make fun of, is now giving me the enticement to stay tuned for 6 more laps to see if Charles can get up to Checo's rear bumper. I'm like, it was going slowly.
And I was kind of trying to look at it at this point. I was like, I know I beat up on you for like when you write this is a snooze fest, like because like 1 lap has happened without any excitement, because that's your threshold, right? 1 lap and Brian says it's a snooze lap, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I'd rather go and watch Mexico repeat right now. But,
oh no!
And then no, this is where I was. I'd fallen very low down. I was like, this is terrible. But it then all of a sudden started looking. The way the tyre strategies were panning out, like, well, maybe this is setting us up for a big humdinger of a Charles versus Perez shootout. Because let's be honest, really the only thing this race was about was who can get second in the championship. You couldn't have asked for it to be any closer. They're tied on points coming into it. Yep. So this is a complete shootout. You've already got the fact that Max has decided he wants nothing to do with this. He disappeared off into the distance, right? And then he could have slowed down, and he could have let Checo go past him, and he could have held up Charles all day long. But he's gone, the best way I can be a good teammate is just like taking myself out of this equation and let those guys get on with it.
His radio message was epic. He goes, the tires are holding up. Tell Checo to go full send. That was his help. Tell him to drive as hard as he can. Are you kidding me? I could have told him.
If Red Bull, to me, and this goes back to your whole kind of like the beef between the drivers, if Red Bull were really going to prioritize Checo, then I think they allow Max to slow a bit, either DRS Checo all the time to keep him out of the grips, or even do the whole hog. I mean, they probably haven't got the balls to let ask Max to let Checo pass, because Max set a phenomenal record with the 15th win. I mean, so there was a record books thing, but this is second in the championship, which is a little bit probably more important than record book stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. So that all happened, and that's the only thing we're really looking at, because Hamilton and George have kind of, as we were warned by Toto, they just haven't quite got the pace. It was weird. They had little pockets where they would hunt Ferrari down. I was like, oh, this is on. George and Lewis have got a chance at this. And then it would last for a few laps, and then suddenly they'd be 5 seconds behind the Ferraris again. And like, what's going on?
Well, when Lewis's car let go, Carlos was right on him. I mean, he was going to have him.
Yeah,
Carlos was
he
going to
was.
have Lewis for sure. You know what was the thing that was fascinating to me along the way? It was lap 39. We had a Gotifi sighting, and he's spinning, and I'm like, what did he do now? But it was your boy Mick who stuck his nose in there. Totally his fault. I mean, 1,000,000%. Yeah.
I do give that the award for the number one synchronized spinning I have ever seen. You cannot get two cars to spin in perfect harmony like that if you go and check the record
And
books.
that's what we're going to miss next year with neither of these guys on the grid.
Neither of these guys on the track. We cannot get synchronized spinning again. Fact.
I watched it. When they showed the replay, I actually think I said out loud, Mick, what the F were you doing?
Well, did you hear what the commentary team said? When they went like,
Latifi was going too slowly into the corner.
No. They said the fronts on these F1 cars are a bit like a Jaguar E-Type, and it's very difficult to underestimate how long the car is. I'm like, I'm a Mick fan, but he's literally been driving this car for 22 other races. I think he must know how. Yeah, just this year alone, he must know how long the nose is. That was just a pure. That was a pure frustration that I wonder if when you're coming up behind Latifi, do you automatically think, well, he's garbage, I must be able to overtake him. So as soon as there's some window, because when he dived for that inside, that was too late and it wasn't really on.
No.
And then he kind of tried to back out of it and brake and not enough. And
you know what I didn't realize? That life really does imitate art. My daughter just tonight hit a car doing the same thing. She hit a parked car, misestimated the length of the front of our car, and hit a parked car just a couple hours ago. So... life imitates art. Anyway, no one liked their strategy. I thought that was funny. Everyone on the one-stopper hated it. And some of the guys on the two-stopper were like, now I got to catch Checo was like, I'm not going to be able to get back up there. No one liked their strategies. Everyone was unhappy, but we'd reached kind of like a no man's land where if you were on the one-stopper, you were committed by lap 45 or so. And so you kind of knew who was going to do what at this point. And quite honestly, everything sort of fizzled because Checo was just so darn far behind Charles, and he was making up ground. To give him credit, he saw him. By the end, he was, half a second behind, but half a second was too little, too late.
Yeah,
at that point.
It's too little. I mean, I didn't like to see Hamilton's car break down, but the silver lining to it was that it promoted Seb into the points. So Seb was hanging out at 11th. Hamilton's car let go.
That cost Lewis 5th place, though, in the championship.
Yeah, but Lewis, do you really think he cares about 5th and 6th?
No.
He wants first or nothing. Once you're second, you might as well be last, right? I think, as far as Lewis is concerned. So 5th and 6th, I was just happy that it put Seb into the points on his final race.
I got 3 things that I just want to close out the race itself with. And one sort of inappropriate. I'm just going to say it. You don't have to acknowledge it. Did you see the picture of Niki Lauda's son?
Right, so I'm down the bar, right?
I'm watching this. I go, is that a typo? Is that his grandson? And I recognize I shouldn't be saying this. No. I was so confused.
I'm going to say this. So the one thing that made this race good for me was that I've got to say a shout out to Dober at the Iron Horse Sports Bar in Unionville. He has opened up for us all season, and this week he opened up at 8 a.m. when he really didn't need to, and a few of us piled in there. I had a few friends that I've not seen for a while actually came down there. We had a good time hanging out. I wasn't really watching the race because we were just all catching up. And then all of a sudden, that came up on the screen, Niki Lauda's son. Literally, about 4 or 5 guys all kind of looked at each other at the same time and went, what? Like wasn't Niki Lauda
alone? I wasn't alone in this confusion.
What was he, 70-something when he passed away?
Yeah.
And
he had to have been 60 or plus when he had this kid.
And I'm going to say again, I'm going to say an inappropriate thing now, and I'm
careful.
Adam, I don't think you listen to this podcast, but it was you that said it in the bar, so I'm going to devolve all responsibility to you. You looked at me and you said, "Doesn't matter how old he is; it matters how old the mom is." That's all.
It's true. More power to Niki Lauda. I was very, when that came on, I was a little discombobulated. By the way, something that got very little attention, Nicky Latifi retired. I don't know if you noticed it, with 1 or 2 laps left, he didn't finish. He was a DNF.
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
Yes.
I didn't even see that.
So he went out the way he lived most of his career, DNF in it. I feel bad. We will miss you, Nicky, but it was perfect. I mean, that was chef's kiss, Williams' strategy. Let's retire the car.
And then, Max took an epic 15th win. I mean, the guy's been a machine.
He's
he's
in a league of his own right now.
Absolutely, 100%. And then Checo comes in, seals the deal. Charles comes in, seals the deal for second in the championship, which is going to be a bittersweet, but maybe he'll look back and think, well, it could have been worse. Checo in for third. Then what made me laugh were all the other cars came in. And then they've been on about Vettel chasing down, who was in front of him? Come on,
Danny
help
Rick.
me out here. Danny Rick. Chasing down Danny Rick. And if you can get past him, it will sort out an extra position in the constructors for Aston Martin. And he wasn't really close. He was just about in DRS as they went into the last lap. And they tried to big it up like it was... And they came around the final corner, and Danny Rick's almost crossed the line, and Vettel is noticeably, 5 car lengths behind him. Can Vettel get him at the line? And we're like, well, no, because look at that big gap. It's like...
Totally true. Totally
and
true.
I thought that little bit of commentary summed up Abu Dhabi for me, trying to hope it would be exciting when obviously it isn't. I don't know what they can do. I don't even know that it matters. If Ferrari and Mercedes can close the gap to Red Bull next year, let's say we have 6 cars that are all closer to each other, would today have been better if we'd have had 6 cars challenging for the lead? I think it probably would.
Yeah.
The problem is that because Max is one of the drivers, well, we had 2 cars that should have been almost identical to each other in Checo and in Max, right? But Max can just drive off into the distance. So this circuit just seems, I don't know what's wrong with it, whether it's not got the best braking zones. I don't know what it is, but other than last year's artificial thing, I don't know that we've ever really seen fantastic races here.
Last year they changed the circuit to make it better racing, and it's still not great.
Yeah.
The last thing I had on this before we kind of close the race is I loved the end. I loved the donuts for the top 3. I'm a sucker for that stuff.
Yep.
I loved the interviews, but I loved Seb getting his own set of donuts and his own interview. And I waited for them to get through the podium, and I'm like, I'll see these guys next year. I can listen to Checo next year. I can listen to Charles. I can listen to Max. But I wanted to hear from Seb. And it was just great when Seb came on there, and I will miss him more than I thought I would when he announced his retirement. I'm going to miss his team radio, which is always so frank.
There's something loose between my legs.
There's something loose between his legs. I love Seb. I'm going to miss him more than I really didn't know this. Like when he announced his retirement, I thought, okay, we'll miss him as a driver and as a guy, and he's really matured. But then in retrospect, and your video really did a lot. Definitely going to miss him a lot.
Well, I was going to say, so in self-promotion mode on 2 fronts. One, the video, finding plumbing the depths for all the pictures of him as a youngster with Michael Schumacher, his karting days, and then every single kind of highlight he's had throughout his career. I was like, holy cow, he's done way more. And then that made me think back to a blog, one of the first blogs we did back in July. I really wrote the blog mainly because I liked the song Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones, and Sympathy for the Vettel just seemed a good kind of fit. So I kind of wrote a blog around an idea of a title. But I looked at it and I thought, I don't think he does get... Max, to me, is almost Seb 2.0. And what I mean by that is, Seb didn't get a lot of the credit, I don't think, from the media and from everybody while he was winning his 4 championships in Red Bull, because it was, it's the car. It's just the car. You're in the best car, you're a dominating car. And Seb actually wasn't almost a poster boy. He was almost like, people didn't gravitate towards Seb because he was the cocky guy that was winning all these championships. I'm like, and everyone seems to have loved Seb more as he's kind of aged through his Formula One career. And now he's at a point where people look back at it with fond memories and say, 4-time champion. I'm like, so I do feel a little bit sorry for him, which is why we named that one Sympathy for the Vettel, because he didn't seem to get that love at the time. And I'm thinking, I don't think Max is getting that love either right now, because people are too quick to write it off as, it's the best car. Yeah, but there's 2 people that have access to that same machinery.
Right.
And one of them makes it look like a rocket ship, and one of them makes it look fast, but not as fast. So, yeah, I am going to miss him. I'm going to miss him for riding scooters back to the pit lane. I'm going to miss him.
I'm going to miss him for the causes he believed in. And I'm going to miss him for the way he was like an elder statesman and the way he took Mick under his wing. I'm going to miss all of the things he did for Aston Martin these last couple of years by being sort of a voice of reason and just a guy you could always trust on the grid, not cutting you off and not making a bad move. I'm just going to miss his personality, his sense of humor.
Yep.
I loved him on Top Gear a million years ago when he showed a little bit of that sense of humor and personality. And whenever you got to see some of it, it was always just welcome. But he was fiercely private about his personal life, and I respect the hell out of that too.
Yeah, and just to kind of do a big circle to how we started this and my rant on Mick, is that I actually think that kind of mentor-mentee relationship, there's a few teams that have got it, and they seem to do pretty well with kind of an elder statesman with a younger driver. Lewis and George. You've got Valtteri and Zhou. and you've got a few more of them like that. And I think and you're going to see it next year as well with some of the youngsters coming through. I just think Seb probably had unfinished business. I don't think his time in F1 is completely done. I don't see him ever coming back as a driver, but I think he'll take some time away. He'll spend some time in all the causes he believes in, but I do think we'll see him back in some shape or form in F1 at some point. But
well, let's wrap the race with a couple stats before we close and move on. So here we go. SAP Stats Abu Dhabi Last Race of the Year edition. A few of these I borrowed from Sean Kelly, Virtual Statman. So it was Verstappen's third consecutive win at Yas Marina. I didn't realize that. And it's the first time he's won at the same track 3 years in a row. So his first 3-time in a rower. Ferrari, as we've already said, clinched second in the race with Charles, but second also in the Drivers' Championship with Charles, and then second in the Constructors' Championship. Checo came home third. 2 points would not have made a difference from that Brazil swap, as I already said. Red Bull have still never finished 1-2 in the Drivers' Championship. I didn't realize they never had that before, and they were so close, but just 3 points apart. Carlos Sainz finished P4 today. He did, as I already referenced briefly, but he was the one who jumped Lewis in the standings from 6th to 5th, which is where he finished the 2021 Drivers' Championship. So that's pretty good consistency from Carlos. And he had a lot of races where he was in the gravel on the first lap, and he still managed to pull that off. So kudos to him. George Russell, this is one of my favorite stats in a while here. He took P5 in the race. It's his 19th top 5 finish in 22 races this year. Holy cow. Are you kidding me? 19 races and... 19 top 5s in 22 races. That is Mr. Consistency, yes?
Yeah, so I'm going to interrupt your SAP stats just quickly for a prediction from you, right? George is blatantly going to be the number one driver soon at Mercedes. He has to be. He's got the talent, right? Now, how long? Do you leave it in Lewis's lap as to how long he wants to stay around? Because we were talking about this at the bar today. Let's say Mercedes close the gap on performance. They have a good car next year.
Yeah.
I could see a reason for Lewis to retire next year either way. If he pulls it out the fire and wins number 8, it almost writes itself. Quit at the top. Boom. If he doesn't, if they're competitive and he still can't bring it home, then does he say, well, now I'm never going to bring it home. It's time to pass the torch to George. And if he passes the torch to George, do Mercedes exercise the free Mick Schumacher as a reserve driver next season to bring him in as the number 2 when George is number 1? And I don't say this just because of my love of Mick. I'm kind of looking at all the spare slots and who's got where. And Toto hinted today that
he ripped
Mick
on Gunther Steiner. Did you see
that?
He
said Mick's on the radar for the reserve. And I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. Play it forward. As well as him being a promising driver and George obviously being their number 1 going forward, it's not a bad number 2 to have in there, and just in terms of the PR alone. The Schumacher name, so the most famous German driver surname to go with the most famous German car name in the sport, so Mercedes-Schumacher combo. I'm sure the PR machine is kind of waiting for that. So I'm kind of thinking that maybe they do exercise trying to tempt Mick over as their reserve driver. What do you reckon?
I fundamentally disagree with one part of your argument.
Go.
I love the Mick reserve driver idea. I think it makes 1,000,000% sense. It should totally happen. Toto actually said that the Gunther's from up high in the mountains where the air is thin and it hurts your ability to breathe, to think. Meaning, he thinks it's a stupid move to get rid of Mick, and he seems to respect the heck out of Mick, and I don't understand why he wouldn't. So I agree with that part. But I disagree with the idea that we're at a point where it's obvious that is clearly the number 1 driver. I mean, he outpointed Lewis this year, I agree. He was more consistent. But
he won a race.
Yes, but at the end of the year, Lewis had a boatload of seconds and podiums. And I don't have the stats from the last, let's say 5 or so races, but the car was developed, came back to Lewis. And so...
Oh, no, sorry. But you're now retrospectively looking at this year. If we sit here as Lewis is a 37-year-old, right?
I understand that.
We have one more year for Lewis to be number 1 driver. A fact. Next year, Lewis is still number 1 driver.
Okay.
But when we get to the end of next year, I can see a case for, if he wins it, I think he retires with his 8th World Championship. I don't even think he don't even risks going out on a low.
Yeah.
If he gets a competitive car and still can't beat the Red Bulls or the Ferraris, I think then at 38, nearly 39, I think he thinks, do I keep doing this?
Okay, I'll buy that. I just don't think George is clearly the number one driver, though.
No, I meant, sorry. George is clearly the number one driver for Mercedes going forward.
Correct.
Is what
Agreed.
I meant. As in,
100%.
Okay,
I'm with you. Let's close a couple of these here. Lando Norris came home P6 from McLaren and set the fastest lap. Nice job, Lando. That was the 5th fastest lap of his career. Had Lewis not retired, Lando would have finished 7th, which we've said 100 times. Lando's always 7th. However, never mind that problem, because in the driver standings for the year, where's Lando? 7th.
He's got to change his car number to 7 next year.
Does.
He has to.
He needs to. I mean, and you know what that means, though, right? In my mind, it means if you look at the fact that the top 6 drivers are all in the top 3 teams with the best cars, quite honestly, the next best driver, the best of the rest, if you take those 6 out who have been given the best cars, it's Lando.
It is, and it makes why did nobody move for him? Because you're looking at it, and he's hauling that piece of crap around.
Yes,
and staying. Okay, he's not. We were joking today in the bar. I when I saw him in 7th, I said to Jim, I said Brian's going to be like beside himself because look at this. Lando's in 7th. He's 18 or 15 seconds behind 6th, and he's 8 seconds ahead of 8th. He's going nowhere. He's finishing in 7th
Witness
again.
protection program.
Yeah, exactly. And then Hamilton blew up, but. Fair play to him. He has dragged that car around consistently, like you say, to be the best of the rest.
It's amazing.
And he was never in the conversation for a new drive. And I guess that's because...
Well, he's got a big contract.
He's got a big contract. Someone else has to move, blah, 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 blah. But if McLaren can even just increase that car just slightly over the break... if they had some development in the background where they didn't give up on this year's car, but they filtered something towards next year's, if they can just give him a little bit more, he could be challenging, He really could. I really like Lando. He's a good
had
driver.
some amazing quali as well. Put in some serious laps. He's got a lot of talent, and you're right. That car it was a pig to drive around this year. I feel like after every race, he probably went into the debrief like,
It's broken! It's broken!
But so that's enough stats. We can move on. There was it's just like you said, not the greatest race. I was hoping the strategy would pan out and make it a little more exciting, and that at least kept me entertained. We
didn't even get a safety car. Do you know what? When we saw the flags being waved, I was like, please pan to somewhere. And no offense, I don't wish ill on anyone, but I was hoping the camera was going to pan to Latifi in a wall somewhere.
It's his last race.
I know, but why? Just go out on what you're known for.
But he did at DNF.
Yeah, I know, but a safety car might have spiced it up. But anyway, let's see what someone who was there actually thinks about it, right?
Hey guys. So my last review, we're sort of done. The season done. It's a bit echoey. I'm sort of doing this ad hoc off my phone, pretty much because I forgot, and I was having a beer.
Nice.
What do we think of the race? Let me think. So. It was okay. I mean, like, we were in a battle for 6th place in the constructors with the team and Aston Martin, so that was primarily my focus. And yeah, I was a little bit shocked that Red Bull didn't do a better tactic scenario with Sergio in Max. I think maybe Sergio being let through and Max defending from Leclerc would have probably been good, but yeah, look, one of those things. One of those guys had to lose out. Maybe go back to Brazil. We don't know exactly what happened in Brazil, so it's hard to cast judgment. But listen, from my side, I'm just delighted the season's over. It's been brutal. It's been amazing fun. There's been some great races, and it's been excellent along the way. There's been some proper good moments, and it's the season. Even though the championship was over pretty early, it has been good. So I think we should celebrate a good year. Celebrate Max. He's a great champion. He's a great driver. Ferrari need to improve. They'll come back stronger for next year. I'm pretty sure Mercedes will. But yeah, very sad to see Seb going today as well. He's just a legend, and you see like the donuts on a start finish straight. It sort of puts a lump in your throat, bizarrely. And what a guy. We'll see him back, I'm sure, in some capacity. But all in all. Yeah, I'm just going to be lots of positivity in this review, because I can be quite negative on races, because I think saying how a race is brilliant, because when you say how a race is, it's because you actually feel it. rather than if you say a race is great and it isn't, it's because you're just trying to fake it. So if I am negative and moody, it's purely based on the fact that I'm just trying to be honest with you guys. So there we go. I left Mercedes 12 months ago, and it's a tradition with Mercedes team that you get thrown into the let's say the harbour, if you can call it a harbour, here in Abu Dhabi. They caught up with me tonight, so I've had a nice little swim. I will join them later for an end of season party to see off the 22 season. And really ask for you two guys. I'm going to put a special shout out for you two, because doing a podcast is hard, and especially doing a podcast on something which is close to your heart, because I guess you have to sort of, you've got to appeal to people, because you can't just be a fan. You've got to be, you've got to be independent. You've got to be something about you. So I just want to congratulate you on your first season of the podcast, because it's great to listen to. It gets a lot of good feedback. Personally, from my side, quite honestly, I just think it's great what you guys do. And the interview with Jack always says it's still one of the better interviews he's done because it was different. So continue your work. And for people listening, yeah, it's not easy talking about F1, so give these guys some credit. And for me, I'm not going to say anything bad about Abu Dhabi. We've got a World Cup in Qatar, which is probably an hour from here, and that's going to speak for itself. So to you all, enjoy. I hope England beat USA next Friday. Apart from that, peace out. And I will speak to you very soon.
Awesome. Paul, thank you. That was really nice.
It was amazing. But we decided that we needed to give a shout out for Paul. He has been absolutely amazing from the very first day that we sent him the first episode and said, what do you think of this? Should we even bother continuing? To him then telling us that it didn't suck and actually wanting to come on and kind of be a guest, and then doing the reporting all year. And even if he thinks he's negative, we actually look forward to his negativity because it's refreshing, and we love his travel facts about the countries. And we were just thinking, how can we say thank you to Paul? So on about Tuesday this week, I reached out to my good friend Andy of Sandwich Rant remix fame. If you don't remember that,
that's how we know him. He's famous for other things in other parts of his life.
I'm sure he's famous for other things, but really, I can't give you the things I know him from being as a kid, because that will embarrass him too much. But from musical talent-wise, if you haven't checked it out, go to our YouTube channel, look for the Sandwich Rant song. That was all Andy's work. He's amazing. So I dropped Andy a note, and I said, look, I want to do some kind of musical montage for Paul to say thank you for everything he's done. I've been binge watching Parks and Recreation recently, and there is a song on there called The Pit, which Chris Pratt, now Star-Lord, sings on there for his band Mouse Rat. So I kind of rewrote the lyrics to be, instead of The Pit, The Pits. And I sent Andy a little garbled message saying, is there any way that you could re-record this and turn it into something that would sound credible? And he worked his magic, and I think we're just going to play it now, and we just say, Paul, there's a YouTube video that's going to go with this. We're going to drop after the episode, because we just want to say thanks to you. You've been absolutely amazing. You've had kind of like unwavering support for us. The fact that you brought us to Jacques Villeneuve, we can never say thank you enough for. Do you want to say something, Brian, and then we'll just hit play?
I mean, yes, for somebody who I just met a year ago, the support that Paul has shown both Rob and I is amazing, man. I can't thank you enough. Honestly, the reports you file at the end of the race, A, it's insider information, B, it's hilarious, and C, it's just so different and something amazing. I think a lot of the Dirty Siders have always told us how much they love Pit Lane Paul. So let's check out the pits.
Hey, this is Doug McKagan, and you're listening to the Dirty Side of the Track podcast. I'm here with Pit Lane Paul.
Pits. Paul is in on the pits. He reports from the pits. We all feel we're in the pits. Pits. Paul is in on the pits. He sees stars in the pits. We all feel we're in the pits. Oh, the pits. Paul is in on the pits. Travel facts from the pits. We all feel we're in the pits. Sometimes racing's gonna get you down, but travel owes Paul takes a look around. standing in the pits.
So good.
Sometimes Racing's gonna get you down, but Pit Lane Paul takes a look around, brings you race facts while you're standing in the pits. The pod, Pit Lane Paul on the pod, bringing guests on the pod. We all love Paul on the pod.
This is Jacques Villeneuve, and you're listening to the dirty side of the track.
Amazing. I mean, that
Andy,
is just
amazing.
Andy. Seriously. Oh man, this is a great episode. This is like the Thanksgiving episode. We're highlighting so many amazing things. Paul, thank you, man. Rob, good job to you. Good job to Andy. That's like a professional song, man.
I scrolled some lyrics down.
Yeah.
Andy kind of watched the YouTube video of the mouse rat video that I sent him, saying it needs to sound a little bit like this. So he literally watched a video and learnt how to play it, and probably I think he does the guitar better than Mouse Rat did on Parks and Recreation. And the dude that sings, I asked if I could do a shout out because that was great that he got a friend of his who was a singer to come and do the gravelly lyrics, and he said no, he'd prefer to be the unknown singer. So I'm just going to call him Dusty McGravel Tones and say thank you very much, because that was better than I thought it could be when we scribbled those lyrics together. It was a real song. And it was a real song, and Paul, please look out for the YouTube video because we raided your Facebook page. We found lots and lots of memories of you in F1, and we're going to string it together in a little video for you. So, again, just thanks, Paul. You've been amazing.
Yeah, Paul, thanks. Okay, we're going to shift gears quickly and end because we're going a little long. Apologies for that. Just so much good stuff. Let's talk fantasy. We're going to close out the 2022 Play On fantasy season. First off, as you guys know, Rob and I always kind of talk about how we're doing relative to each other. And it's important that we close the stats here. I haven't rubbed it in every week, but there were 22 races. Rob won 5, and I won 17, which is more than 5. So I enjoyed being the winner, while Rob was really good as being the loser.
I beat Paul. And he's an F1 professional, and that's all I care about.
He's a little busy. But let's talk a little bit about Abu Dhabi first and close out this week, and then we're going to quickly. So if you're still here, everyone on the Fantasy League, wait, because you're about to get a shout out. This week, though, Abu Dhabi, first place, Ben W. with Bennington. Joseph W.
DRS guest, Ben W.
Yes. Joseph W. Can you hear the drums for Lando? William B. Will's first string. Paul M. Poppin' Botas, and Paul M. also DRS guest. By the way, Danielle P. 5th, mom is number 1. I feel like we've talked about her every week in the top 10. 7 Young K, Next Gen, Yoav A, King Julian's Racists, Clint E, Yuki's Potty Mouth, Sophie M, Team 1, and finally the top 10, Edward, Jason S, Gunnar Stroud. But it's the end of the season. We have come to a point where we want to make sure everybody knows that we appreciate you participating in the Dirty Side League. So where did people finish the year? We're going to start from 68. Jason D, Team 1.
I thought you were going to count us in.
1, 2, 3.
No,
Jason D, Team 1.
Whoa, hang on. We're going to do a rapid-fire countdown from 68 to 1. And we were supposed to count us in, and then Brian just goes and drops 68 on me. I hadn't even flicked across to the leaderboard. Come on, you got to give me the heads up here. Just
and in about 2 minutes, we're going to move over so that Rob can prepare himself.
No, I'm there now. I'm ready.
Jason D, Team 1.
Skyboy, Team 1.
Brian C, Stallion.
David C, Alpha Carry.
John G, Team 1.
Brandon P, Bosco, Team 1.
Ryan B, can't be bothered to make a name.
Darren L, Paddle Shifters.
Yeah, paddles, that's what's correct. Jeff K, Team 1.
Jeremy C, Has-Beens.
Stuart D, Mansell's Mustache Masters.
Another Ruben, Terribly Dutch.
Olivia M, No Regrets, Only Memories.
Lee W, Team Minimal Effort.
Garth G, G-Money.
Ben W, Benetton.
E.T, E2D, Mercenaries.
Anthony P, I win again, only if the prize was coming in 51st, but okay.
Hey, keep the snarky comments to yourself. Kuds I am, Les Boissons.
Simon S, Cy Racing.
Jillian N, nothing to Lewis.
Kelly Marie S, Winging It.
Potway P, Team 1.
Lennis M, Zoom Zoom.
Jeff C, Ricardo, I barely know her.
Danielle P, Momis number 1.
Robert M, Russell in the bushes.
Lewis R, Team 1.
Rowan D, DTS, Drive to Spin.
Oh, no. I'm
Rowan
sorry.
D. Wait,
You've messed up.
what'd I do?
I did Lewis R, Team 1. Who's above that in 39th?
Rowan D, DTS, Drive to Spin.
Oh, it's joined. I got Mark D. It's the other way around on mine. Oh, my gosh.
But
okay.
230, so Mark D, DLV. Okay, now we got both of them.
Okay. I'm going to go in from here now. Fenoliva, Scalebound Grand Prix.
Paul H, no idea.
Woo, Paul H. Avanish C, Team 1.
Andy E, at least 3 characters.
And I think that could be Andy of song fame, but I'm not sure. Anyway, Cy M, Safe Bet.
Rob V, Slow Brian on, pulling in at 33rd. Nice job, Rob.
That's what I wanted, all the 3s. James B, J-Lab.
Jim M, Guitar Hero. Your neighbor beat ya.
I know he did. Paul M, Poppin' Bottas.
William B, Will's first string.
Sophie M, Team 1.
7 Young K, Next Gen.
Daniel Y, Booty Bandit Club.
AOL S, Nutcracker Wannabes.
Stephen U, Vroomstappen.
Cruise R, Cruise Seat.
Yoav A, King Julian's Racists.
Paul G, Team 1.
Nimrod A, Mercedes Nuts.
Ryan H, Team 1.
Peter G, Scudera Gates.
I think that's Scuderia, like the team.
Well,
but okay.
whatever.
Heidi O, Team 1.
Liam D, winner, chicken dinner.
David T. Michael, I just sent you an email.
Jacob Z, Team A.
Mark E. Shuey.
Abby W, Team 1.
Joseph W. Can hear the drums for Lando.
Oh, I knew I was going to get this one. Thomas H, Nazrak Nadamnik.
Nailed it. Renato. Flying Hakkinen.
Kerry H, Team 1.
Edward Jason S. By the way, we are now at number 7. Edward Jason S. Gunnar Stroud.
Coming in at number 6, Vanesh J, Team 1.
Clint E. in 5th, Yuki's Potty Mouth.
In at number 4, Roman M, Rampuri F1 Team.
And number 3, Balotelli 21, Red Bolino.
And
I love the fact you have to read number 2.
I know, and our runner-up in at number 2, Some Schmuck, Sap.
Well, that's the name of the team is Sap. Are you calling me some schmuck? And then
that's what it says here. The name of the person, some schmuck. Yeah, that's what it says.
Team 1, the winner of the season, Andy T. Alpha Taily. Andy, by the way, finished, I think, 26th in the world. So I'm fine finishing right behind him. I was 333rd in the world, 333 out of 1.6 million. So I was happy with that. But it's
pretty low down, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fine. The winner of the T-shirt is Balotelli 21, the overall winner for the season, because Andy T already got a T-shirt, and turns out I have some. So Balotelli 21, Red Bolino, send us an IM, a DM on Twitter at F1 Dirty Side with your info, and we'll trade some notes and get you a T-shirt wherever you may live.
Yeah, well done. And you can be wearing a T-shirt just like Rob Reed was wearing in Abu Dhabi today, which was insane to see our pokey little podcast being paraded around a real-life Grand Prix. And that's happened like multiple times now. We've had Paul do it in Miami, Rob do it in Abu Dhabi, and I know we're going to do it ridiculously, self-gratuitously in Canada.
Well, we gotta find the happy balance.
No, we don't.
You don't? Every day, Dirty Side T-shirts?
I think we're gonna have to buy if we're there for 3 days, we're gonna have to buy 3 T-shirts each, and maybe a hat and gloves and pants. And I mean UK pants. I mean UK pants, not US pants. I mean, we've got to be all in Dirty Side, I'm telling you.
Oh my God. All right, that works for me. I mean, I like this idea. I like this
anyway,
idea a lot.
So that brings to an end. That's almost full circle, right? We started this podcast reviewing the last race of last season. So although this is episode 50 and it's not a year because it's not 52, race-wise, we are back where we started. And don't want to get too schmaltzy in kind of Thanksgiving week, but thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian, for your drunken conversation last Thanksgiving when you decided, let's turn our stupid race chat on a Monday morning into a podcast, because that little genius stroke has seen us talk to Nate and Brake and someone called Jacques Villeneuve and hopefully many more to come. So thank you, sir. It's been an awesome year, and we're not going to go away. We've got some off-season stuff planned. We're hopefully going to get an end-of-season review coming up next week with some guests, and we're going to kind of keep pottering around. It might be some shorter stuff over the winter where there's not a lot going on, but we won't disappear from the airwaves. And then we're going to Paul will understand this one, but we're going to be back stronger next season.
So I would just echo your thanks, but for you. I've really enjoyed doing this with you, and your ideas and your creativity, Rob, are fantastic. And it's a lot of fun doing this, and I really enjoy it. And as you said, yes, we will be here. Don't go anywhere. We're around all off season. We have a lot of great ideas. I'm really excited about the off season. Yes, they may be slightly shorter than this long episode, but we have a lot of ideas from some fantasy, some guests, some recaps, some Vale's Tales. There's a whole lot of stuff in the hopper that you're going to enjoy. And I think we may take 1 or 2 weeks off, but that's probably it. So we'll be here hanging out, ready to talk and hang out with the Dirty Siders, because that's actually been my favorite part. Episode 50, maybe we close on this. I just want to say thanks. Thanks to everybody who listens. Thanks to everybody who participates. The community of fellow F1 fans, the fellow Dirty Siders like us, man, it's great. And the reason I highlighted at the end of News and Social and what people are doing, I just love it. And when F1 Twitter can be so toxic at times, it's fun to be part of a community that really lifts each other up and cheers for the people we care for. And I love it. So thank you to everyone who listens.
That's exactly what I was going to go to as well, Brian, was kind of the final thanks is to the people that listen, because me and you ramble on and talk into our microphones, but we do seem to actually get some people that enjoy it, and we are going to try and do an episode coming up soon where we try to get the guys that regularly hang out on the Discord server that have kind of been with us from the beginning. If you are listening now for the first time and you want to jump on the Discord, you can be involved in this as well, but we want to try and do one kind of episode where we get just us and as many Dirty Siders as we can cram onto an episode as possible, because this is kind of nothing without everyone that listens. So if you've got any suggestions for what we can do next year, things you didn't like the way that we did anything this year, things that you think we can improve, then either tweet us, we're on Instagram, join the Discord, whatever. But it's been a blast, and we're going to carry on doing it until people basically shut us down.
Pretty much. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. We loved F1 22. Can't wait for 23. We will be here through the off season. A lot more coming. Everyone have a great day.